What actually is music? It's a question that seems super simple on the surface, right? But the deeper you dig, the more elusive the answer actually becomes. Is it something we create from scratch, forcing our own human will onto silence? Or is it something that's already happening all around us, literally just waiting for us to notice it? Today, we're going to dive into the incredible journey of legendary composer Ryuichi Sakamoto. We're tracking his unbelievable evolution from this young, forward-thinking pioneer who wanted absolute control over sound to a profoundly wise artist who ultimately learned how to just surrender to it. Welcome to this explainer, Song of the World, Ryuichi Sakamoto's Philosophical Transformation. We're going to trace Sakamoto's profound musical and philosophical evolution, and you'll see exactly how his very definition of music transformed right alongside the biggest events of his life. This isn't just your standard story about switching genres from synth-pop to acoustic minimalism. It's really an exploration of his lifelong quest to understand the Song of the World itself. Let's get into it. Section 1. The Architect of Synthesis, Constructing Perfect Harmony. All right, so let's jump back to his early era in the 1970s. Sakamoto was classically trained at the prestigious Tokyo University of the Arts. They literally nicknamed him Professor. And back then, he sat firmly on the side of human control. He totally believed that human culture could construct perfectly ordered harmony using technology, basically as a way to fight against what he saw as nature's inherent chaos. To him, technology was the ultimate tool. It was how you imposed precision, intent, and human ego directly onto sound. And that philosophy really came to life when he formed the band Yellow Magic Orchestra, or YMO for short. Using these massive analog synthesizers and super rigid click tracks, he basically acted as a strict musical architect. He was in there dictating every single digital frequency to build this hyper-quantized, totally futuristic soundscape. It was brilliant, it was completely groundbreaking, and most importantly for Sakamoto at the time, it was entirely human-controlled. Moving on to Section 2, the global pop crossover beyond the mask. Now, this technological mastery absolutely did not stay isolated in Japan. It made massive global waves that bled into Western pop culture in ways you might not even realize. Check out this sequence of events. Back in 1978, Sakamoto wrote this synth track called Behind the Mask for a Seipo watch commercial. YMO then recorded it as this really cold robotic vocoder track. Fast forward a little bit, and legendary producer Quincy Jones hears it in Japan, absolutely loves it, and plays it for Michael Jackson during the Thriller sessions. No joke, Michael Jackson was totally captivated. He took Sakamoto's cold, tech-heavy melody, threw in these killer funk bass lines and passionate soul lyrics, and completely transformed the whole thing. But, in a crazy twist of fate, the track was actually pulled from the final Thriller album because of a fierce royalty dispute between their management teams. Just wild to think a Japanese watch commercial was that close to landing on the best-selling album in human history. But that story perfectly highlights exactly who Sakamoto was at this time. He was a young, incredibly forward-thinking genius sitting right at the absolute center of the world's technological music revolution. He was bridging that gap between cold, calculated precision and warm pop expressionism. And in doing so, he really paved the way for decades of electronic music that followed. Section 3. The Organic Sponge, From Friction to Friendship. So, as incredible as that YMO era was, the really high-pressure world of international pop stardom started creating some intense friction. It actually culminated in this super tense 1993 reunion album called Technodon. That project was so driven by corporate label pressures that it left the band members on a really cold, ambiguous note. It took a whole decade for that tension to finally melt away. By the early 2000s, Sakamoto was casually collaborating again with his former bandmates, but this time they were exploring very subtle, glitched-out electronica. This low-pressure environment led to a massively important performance at the 2004 Sonar Festival in Barcelona, which marked a huge shift in his identity. Here's why that matters. For that 2004 performance, they called themselves Human Audio Sponge, or HAS. Sakamoto was profoundly transitioning here. He completely stopped trying to force rigid structures onto his music. Instead, his new goal was to act as a sponge, just letting ambient and digital sounds wash right over him. It was a collaborative, egoless approach that eventually evolved into the group Hazimo, which led to a major performance at Live Earth Kyoto, aimed at raising climate change awareness. He was looking outward now, deeply connecting with the environment. Which brings us to Section 4, Music of Non-Intent, Discarding the Blueprint. This growing eco-consciousness really took hold in the 2010s. This is where Sakamoto radically pivoted. He started integrating these totally unconventional elements directly into his compositions. I mean, we're talking literally wandering through forests to capture the sound of rain dripping on metal, recording the crunch of walking on gravel, or even measuring the bioelectric impulses of trees to translate them into soundscapes. His role entirely shifted. He went from being a traditional creator to more of a medium, someone who just translates environmental activity into frequencies that our ears can actually process. He was hugely inspired by the haunting environmental sound design in Andrei Tarkovsky's films, and the philosophy of the avant-garde composer John Cage. Sakamoto vigorously pursued what he called this music of non-intent. The goal? To completely escape the human ego. Because, if you think about it, human compositions always have this highly structured beginning, middle, and end. But natural sound? Natural sound just continues infinitely. There's no narrative blueprint. A really perfect example of this is from his 2017 album Async. For one of the tracks, he literally just placed a bucket over a microphone out in his backyard to capture the pure, raw sound of rain hitting metal. That was it. He was proving that natural resonance exists beautifully and independently, entirely without our intervention or our need to control it. Section 5. The Final Sound Diary. Embracing Impermanence. This profound acceptance of nature's infinite course deeply informed his final, most intimate years. After being diagnosed with terminal cancer, Sakamoto fully embraced the Buddhist concept of anicca, which means impermanence. He knew his time was limited, so he started recording these daily sound sketches, and he actually refused to give them traditional titles. Instead, he just named them by the exact dates they were recorded. And in his incredible 2023 album, simply titled 12, his music quite literally became a living diary. If you listen closely to these tracks, they beautifully and honestly somewhat heartbreakingly interweave his subdued ambient synth drones with the raw, deeply human sounds of his own heavy breathing and the faint hum of his medical equipment in the room. He wasn't trying to hide his fragility at all. He was making it an integral part of the song of his world. It also brilliantly illustrates his late career love for ma. That's the Japanese concept of profound silence, or the space between the notes. He would strike a single acoustic piano key, hold it down, and just let it ring. He'd allow that decaying resonance to gently and naturally dissolve right into the ambient noise of the room, honoring the silence exactly as much as the sound. This all culminated in his final masterpiece, the 2024 concert film Opus. Sitting completely alone at his Yamaha grand piano in this stark black and white studio, bathed in this really gorgeous natural-looking light, he played his final notes. He left us with a quiet, incredibly graceful sign-off, having fully and completely surrendered to the sound of the world. Sakamoto's entire life journey, from those rigid, quantized click tracks of YMO to the incredibly open ambient listening of his final days, teaches us such a profound lesson. Music isn't just something constructed in a studio by the human ego. It's an ever-present force all around us. It's in the rain, it's in the trees, it's in the silence of an empty room, just waiting for us to stop, become a sponge, and truly listen. So, I want to leave you with this final thought as we wrap up today's explainer. Take a moment when this ends, sit in silence, and ask yourself, what unseen music is playing in your environment right now, just waiting for you to notice it? Thanks so much for exploring this with me today.